Hi, everyone. This is Ryan. I'm host of Going the Distance, the Rocky Series podcast, and I had the awesome opportunity to interview Derek Wayne Johnson on his experiences working with Sylvester Stallone on creating, directing, editing, producing the documentary, which is now available on all streaming platforms to own. I just finished watching it, but before I get into my very quick, spoiler-free review of that documentary, I just want to be clear and say thank you to Derek for his time, his friendship, his talent, everything that he's provided us as Rocky fans, as Stallone fans. It truly is a pleasure to know him. We should be grateful that this has happened. Secondly, let's give our thanks to the late and great John G. Avildsen for filming so much incredible footage of the filming process of the making of Rocky, of which this documentary would not have been possible. So the documentary that I am, of course, speaking about is 40 Years of Rocky, The Birth of a Classic, or if you live outside of Canada and the US, it is called Becoming Rocky, The Birth of a Classic. I just finished watching this morning, and I'm about to release my interview with Derek, and Derek wanted this interview to be released on the day of the documentary's release. I've always told Derek I wish I had a bigger audience. I wish I had tens and tens of thousands of followers or listeners to the show. I just don't. I have a very small influence because I have a very small amount of listeners compared to the big conglomerates out there. So I'm asking my listeners, the friends and family who listen to this show, to buy this documentary. And let me just say something here that I can't believe it. When I did the interview with Derek, I didn't know what the price of the documentary was going to be when I talked to him, because at that time of the interview there was no pre-order. The pre-order came out after the interview. My friends in Canada, and I'm sure it's the same in the States and everywhere else, $3.99 to own this documentary. And not only just to own it, which is great, but to say to Derek and to give him the opportunity to create more of these works of art is your way of showing support. I mean, people buy a coffee almost at Starbucks or whatever for this amount of money. This documentary was beautiful. It was emotional, and it was so full of information. It was a speed train of information. I'm glad I own it because now I can watch it more than once, obviously, and there's so much that is said by Sylvester Stallone about the making of the film. I love his candor. His narration is incredible. I love how he speaks to the images. He has some humor. He definitely has a sense of humor about himself. I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but I just want to say that his humor, his insight, and the love that he has for Rocky, it's so apparent. And it's just, you can't be a fan of Rocky and just not hear the words of Stallone be very intimate about this production and the love that he had and the memories that he had. Just basically you're seeing a man who's in his twilight years, let's be honest, speaking about his youth. And it's an incredible experience to see somebody look back at their life and to look back at a time when they just didn't know where their life was going to go. And to see that talked about and to hear that talked about was just an amazing experience. And there's so much that happens on screen. I can see why, as we discussed in the interview, why this movie or documentary is 30 minutes long. It's just an amazing amount of information. It ended perfectly because it ended in a way that you want more, but you got everything. And the only way to explain it is to watch this. So, how's that for a plug? I hope you enjoyed the interview that I had with Derek. Again, Derek was amazing, and I appreciate him, appreciate his friendship. Without further ado, thank you for listening. And if you like the way I interview somebody and you're listening to this interview just because of your love for Derek, but you like Rocky, come on and listen to some of my other episodes. But if not, at the very least, thank you, Derek, and go buy this documentary, everybody. All right, welcome everyone to Going the Distance, the Rocky Series podcast. So without further ado, I just want to say hello to Derek the Wayne Johnson. How you doing?
I love that. I think you're the only person that does that.
Full disclaimer here, I'm like geeking out a little bit because Derek and I have become, as much as we can, I think we've become friends via social media or the internet. Like, we've never met in real life. I consider Derek like a brother. We connect on a lot of good levels, both with regarding, of course, our fandom for Sly and for Rocky. I think the reason why we kind of connect too outside of that is because it's a certain kind of person that likes the Rocky films and those type of films, and we're in the right age group. I don't know. I just feel like if we had a couple beers, you and I would be talking for hours on the patio.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. And it goes back to the first time I was on your show. We had a bromance, and I think it's just lasted, 3 years now. So
I can't believe it's been that long.
But what's cool is you and I do a lot of side messaging just about life as well, and I appreciate that about you. You're a really cool guy to talk to, so thank you.
The honor's all mine, Derek. I will say, unfortunately for our video watchers, Derek, the first time I interviewed him, he had a storm rage through his little town in Texas there, and his internet's down again, so he's going off his cell coverage, and unfortunately it's not strong enough on his end to do the video, so we don't get to see your handsome face, or mine for that matter, for this video.
Your handsome face? I don't know what you're talking about. I just woke up. But thank you. Yeah, that's what's so weird. It's the first time I was on your show. I was visiting Texas, where I'm from. It's just the sticks, the piney woods of East Texas. And then all this time I live in Los Angeles. I'm never on your show where the internet and everything's just perfect, the weather and everything. Well, now I'm in Texas again and woke up to a power outage with a storm. We can't win, man. These storms keep us apart. It's crazy.
It is kind of funny, kind of annoying, but not your fault. It's an act of God, as they say, but we're going to keep punching. We're going to keep punching through this.
Absolutely.
For those who haven't heard the first interview I did with Derek, I will put that in the show notes because I don't want to, not that I don't want to repeat some of the old history or some of the stories of how you came to be. We'll touch on it a little bit, but I don't want to repeat a lot of the same information because that interview is still in the feed and I highly recommend it. It's a great interview, of course. And it's actually the first time we talked to each other was that interview. It was amazing how we hit it off right away. So go back to that and I'll put that in the show notes. But just really briefly, Derek, why don't you talk about how you came into deciding to make documentaries, the John G. Avildsen documentary, and then how that got you basically on the hook with Sly to do the Rocky documentary.
John Avildsen was my mentor, my hero. I tried to work with him on narrative feature film scripts, and he turned me down. I came up with the idea to do a doc on him. So as you probably know, King of the Underdogs is the name of that documentary. And it was amazing. We covered Rocky, Karate Kid, all of John's major hits. I, of course, interviewed Sly, and everything was amazing. And I would see Sly pop it up, every once in a while, and I'd say hi. But I still wasn't really on his radar yet. As weird as it would be, I'd go to a mutual friend's dinner or with mixed company, and Frank Sloan's there. So Frank and I hit it off. He starts talking to his brother about me and all this kind of stuff. Before King of the Underdogs even came out, a year before it came out, this is about September of 2016, Sly invited myself and my producing partner, Chris May, to his house with Frank to show him King of the Underdogs. We did. He loved it. And the first thing out of his mouth was, when it was over, the credits rolled and the lights came up, he was like, "That was amazing. And by the way, I have an idea for you guys. I'd like for you guys to do a documentary solely on the original Rocky with all of this footage of John Avildsen's that we used in King of the Underdogs." Because I have hours and hours and hours, I have all of John's footage. When Sylvester Stallone says, "I got a project for you," you don't say no.
No.
We're like, of course. It was cool because I would run into him at different times, but now I'm at his house to show him a movie I interviewed him for, and then now he's offering me a movie. And that's really how this project came about. And of course, we're doing the Frank Stallone documentary as well, and that ties into all of this. It's just really weird how this snowball effect happened, not only with documentaries, which I never set out to do. I make narrative feature films, but now this.
It still blows me away how that happened. It's almost like how the Italian Stallion got picked by Apollo Creed. Rocky Balboa was not looking, in his mind, and rightfully so maybe, he was ever thought he would fight the champ for the belt. It was a peripheral strike of circumstances that brought him into the championship ring. You're doing a documentary, granted it's about the director of Rocky, absolutely, but you didn't go after Sly.
Right. I told Sly, I was like, you're allowing me to live my own Rocky moment, except instead of Apollo picking Rocky, Rocky's picking me. He chuckled at that. He thought that was cute, I guess. It's really strange, but also Hollywood's such a small town. I mean, you got to think about it this way. If you do the timeline, I befriended John Avildsen. I asked Sylvester to be interviewed for that. That was the best interview ever. That was still the greatest day on set I've ever had, the first time I interviewed Sly.
Wow.
And then I would see him every once in a while. And then I happened to meet his brother, Frank, which is a story in itself, because that was just at a dinner at my friend's restaurant, and we hit it off. That led to his documentary, and that led to the 40 Years of Rocky documentary. It's just sort of like this weird, unofficial Rocky Stallone trilogy that kind of came out of this. Although I still pinch myself, it still feels right. I didn't seek him out like I did John Avildsen, but now I've done 3 projects with Sly. Really interesting, and it just feels right.
We have you on the show today because of the 40 Years of Rocky documentary. Now, this has been in gestation for, well, I think we even talked about it back when I first interviewed you. So what was the hiccup? What was the delay maybe in getting it out near the 40-year anniversary than now?
Oh, man, hiccups, plural. Okay. Clearly, the 40th anniversary was 2016. Let's see, in September of 2016 is when Sly pitched the idea to us at his house that night. Mm-hmm. Well, that only gave us until December, right, to get it done. I had the rough cut done. I went home and made this doc, and all we needed was Sly's narration and music to put over it. Well, life gets kind of weird. I mean, that just couldn't happen on time. Then we were so tied up with King of the Underdogs release. Also just different legalities. Is that even a word? Or can you use it in that sense? But there are a lot of legal issues.
Sure.
And a lot of business issues. Now we're fading into 2017 or so. And it's always on Sly's radar, but he's doing Creed 2 in the meantime and all this stuff. And we're still trying to get all the red tape out of the way. Well, here comes 2018. We finally wrangled the Italian Stallion to give us the narration. That was cool because that was a one-take thing. It was one take. It wasn't scripted. That was his idea because I asked him, do you want me to write it out? He said, no, I got this. And he really did. The only thing I scripted was the opening and the ending because I wanted to make sure I had an intro and an outro. When you hear the opening, well, it's no secret. It's on that 30-second teaser. You've heard that before on the 25th anniversary edition DVD, the special feature.
Right.
I just said, hey, I want you to say that. And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, okay, I can do that. So that's the only time that in the whole doc that I really scripted something, and then I needed him to give me a sweetener at the end. I gave him notes, and we went through notes and all that stuff. So it was a wonderful day because I got to direct Sly as far as narration and little things here and there, and we got it. Now I've got his narration. So for the next few weeks, I'm editing it together. I get my composer, the wonderful Greg Sims. He comes in, and boom, in 2 months from the moment we got his narration to finish, it only took us 2 months from narration to music. That's October of 2018. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So what are the other hiccups?
Yeah.
That's when it got into a lot of different business issues. Basically, what I'm telling you and your listeners is a simple 30-minute documentary. 30 minutes was Sly's idea, by the way. Everyone's going, how can you do this in just 30 minutes? Just relax, wait and see, and you'll see why it needs to only be 30 minutes.
I didn't know that part. Okay, wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did. Yeah,
No.
It's only 30 minutes. Well, now you have all of these business issues. So you have all these distribution issues, da-da-da-da-da. And finally, we do a deal with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, with MGM, in 2019. But that deal took a year for the listeners and the fans that are like throwing spears at me for 4 years, they're like, what is going on? Everything was out of our hands.
Of course.
And what you learn is, even for a 30-minute documentary that should have came out 4 years ago, there's a lot of red tape. But we did the deal with MGM and a couple other distribution companies around the world and North America, et cetera. And it's finally going to come out. This little movie is like a little Rocky itself. It's this small little documentary that just is going the distance. The only thing I wish I would have done differently is change the title, because we're so invested in this title for copyrights and LLCs and legal things. We couldn't change it. And now the fans are like, well, it's the 44th year. I'm like, I know that. I'm the director. Like, of course I know that. But the good news is it'll actually have a different title outside of North America. It's going to be called Becoming Rocky.
I think I have a semi-creative brain. It's probably not that great. But
great,
I was just thinking of two things. One, you did all the editing and narration, and the birth of this documentary was at the 40-year mark, correct?
Yes, everything but the narration. All of the editing, I had the rough cut ready. And then it took us 2 years to get the narration. Once we got the narration, we were able to score the music. That only took 2 months.
Right. So what I'm getting at is Stallone, he narrated what you had done at the 40-year mark. So in theory, this still encapsulates that 40 years.
Yes. So it started out, I edited 60 minutes because Sly was like, with this home movies, you don't want to do too much of it because, you don't want to bore the audience with just home movies. Then that kind of didn't work. So we dropped it down to 45 minutes. And it still felt a little too long. So Sly was like, do a solid 30 minutes. That should do the trick. He couldn't have been more right. Everything he narrated 2 years after, yes, was at that 40-year mark.
Then that's how I would look at it. That's how I would make peace with it. Those who are complaining to you, I don't understand who's complaining to you, because like I said, we've been talking for 3 years now, and I would never do that to you. I'd be like, this is obviously, you're doing all that you can. I mean,
well, I appreciate that. It's true. Because think about it, Ryan. It only took me 2 months to do the first edit, maybe a month. Then it took me 2 months after the narration to edit the narration and get it scored. So really, the movie only took me a few months, but it's taken a few years to come out. And that is the behind-the-scenes stuff that a lot of people don't understand. First of all, the fans are amazing. That's not what I'm saying, but there have been a few bad apples that are just so sour.
Sure. No.
And I'm like, guys, just relax. It's coming.
It's always funny when people try to dictate your own product. It's like two things. If you don't like the podcast or if you don't like the film, then by all means, go create your own.
Exactly.
And be ready for those critiques from people of your audience that don't like what you're doing. And you kind of learn, I'm sure you've done this much better than me, but you kind of learn to maybe hear what people have to say, but at the end of the day, it's your product, it's your dream. You're doing all that you can. I do have I hate it when I say that as a podcaster. Right? I do have a question. Of course I have a question. I'm gonna give you a question here. Are you ready for the question? Are you sitting down?
I believe I'm prepared for this question.
Oh, good. Now, actually, more of a comment. I was going to say, Sly, he always seems to delete things. I know Rocky IV had a longer cut. I know there's so many deleted scenes left on the cutting room floor that I feel that I've seen after, especially like Rocky Balboa. There's some like really cool, great scenes that I don't know why Sly feels, let's not put that in there. Do you know what his thinking is on that sort of thing? Are you able to talk about that?
First of all, we don't know if it's Sly, because it could be the studios, it could be the editors, it could be the producers, it could be the distributors, and it could be the director. I mean, we don't know. Remember, less is more, and it is a business. Yeah. It's show business, not show art. Sometimes a lot of golden nuggets have to get thrown on the cutting room floor. As a filmmaker myself, I've lost a lot of things that I wish that I could have kept. But then, you have director's cuts and stuff like that. It's a well thought out process, but you also have to remember this, and this is the way that I look at things when I make cuts. The audience won't miss what they never knew existed in the first place. Mm-hmm. The only reason why you now miss something is because the footage resurfaced, whether that's on a special feature, the director's cut, or YouTube. We go in making a movie thinking no one's going to know about this, and we have to cut it for whatever reason, so let's cut it. Right. But then you have all of a sudden John Avildsen's Rocky V cut hit YouTube, but I know why John did that, because he really believed in that cut. Right. I do believe the studio did not believe in that cut.
No, that's fair. It's just the fanboy in me, I guess, and others, that we just want more. We want more. It's a good thing to want more, I guess. But you're right. As a movie, it is a business. At the end of the day, we know it's a business.
You know, you want your audience leaving wanting more. Look at this 30-minute documentary. You know, I've got fans going, how could you do 40 years of Rocky, all these movies in 30 minutes? I'm like, first of all, if you read, it's only the first movie. And second of all, just wait and see. You're going to see why it's a special, unique little nugget in time that Sylvester narrated. It's so intimate. It's so beautiful. It's full of emotion and humor and charm. We screened it here in Texas for a film festival, just kind of like a sneak peek. We really wanted to see how our audience is going to react to this. There were tears. There was laughter. I mean, they were moved for 30 minutes. Now, go back to Less is More. The great John Avildsen, my mentor, what did he do in his films? He cut on the exact height of the moment. The freeze frame of Rocky holding Adrian in the ring. Yeah. The Mr. Miyagi looking over at Daniel with total satisfaction. Yeah. That's kind of the same thing. Less is more. Keep them wanting to come back for more.
Yeah, no, I like it. Do you know why Sly hasn't done commentary on the other films besides parts 1 and 6?
I don't know, actually. I don't have an answer for it. I failed to ask him that, and I've thought about it, and I should ask him, and I can't ask him. Let me see if I can ask him and see what his answer would be. That'd be good to know.
Yeah, because I wonder what it is. I mean, obviously he loves the character, and he loves the franchise because he's made 6 of them, and he's wrote 6 of them. I mean, I'm only speculating. Is it a money thing? Is it a studio thing? Put it this way, if he wanted to, could he approach the studio and say, hey, let's do an Ultimate Rocky release, which I know, here's the thing. There's millions of fans, Derek, millions, who want this, who want the Ultimate 4K DVD, whatever, box set release with special features or just behind-the-scene discussion. Like, hearing Sly talk about Rocky, the fans are clamoring. I know he's not withholding, because he's got to be aware that fans want this.
There's just so many different things that could go into it. I don't know. I will put it on my notes to certainly ask him, and hopefully I can get an answer.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be wonderful. And for those who are listening who haven't heard this before, but Derek actually went to Sylvester Stallone on my behalf, asked him a question that I had about Rocky 2 and why Rocky proposed to Adrian at the zoo when in part 1, Gazzo's car driver told Rocky to take Adrian to the zoo because the R word, or people like the zoo. And then I asked Derek to ask Sly, why would you have Rocky propose to Adrian at the zoo at the very place that, and it turns out, according to Sly, he doesn't even remember the connection, which boggles my mind.
Remember, he goes, I never thought about it. I just thought the zoo was a really cool looking location.
Right.
So in other words, he had already moved on and is totally focused on Rocky 2. Yeah. That he just thought it was a good location and it was visually appealing, and the whole tiger thing and etc. You know, he's kind of like, yeah. Well, yeah, I see. I guess I missed that one. You know, yeah, so
it's funny.
It wasn't intended and it wasn't not intended. It just happened. And when you're the creator of something, you don't think like the fans do.
No.
Because you spend so much time creating it that when you create it, you kind of move on.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fans kind of stick with it. But yeah, that was a cool moment. I'm glad that he answered that for you. And yeah.
So it's interesting because people will remember something you as a creator saying, but like you said, kind of time moves on and things move on and life changes and you have different ideas.
Exactly. And especially imagine being the biggest movie star in the world. No. You're not focused on what that guy who's watching the VHS tape over and over and over again is focusing on. And that's kind of a crude way of looking at it, but it's true.
Okay, so when you talk about the 30 minutes, that was that was Sly's idea to make it 30 minutes. And I don't want you to spoil anything, but that comes to fruition when you watch the film, is what you're saying?
Yes, it was his idea to do 30 minutes, and it's so perfect that way. This doc would be ruined if it were longer. And when you watch it, you'll see why. It's just this little gem. It's just this little unique piece of film history I think everyone is going to be charmed by. I think it's going to work for sure.
That's awesome. We'll touch on it a little bit, but Frank Sloan's documentary, because I want to have you on for that one, and I want to, if you're willing, and we'll...
No, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, Frank's doc is, I think we've got it, it's 70-something minutes.
That's
I can't remember exactly. 73 maybe. But yeah, his doc is really cool. And again, I mentioned the unofficial kind of trilogy going on.
Yeah.
You'll see some of the footage again in his doc.
That's awesome.
Because of his Rocky connection. And so it's cool. It's like this King of the Underdogs, 40 Years of Rocky, and Stallone Frank, that is, little unofficial connection. And you'll learn a lot more about Rocky just from Frank's documentary. Yes, I will come back on for that, so I won't spoil it. That's doing really well in the festival circuit.
That's awesome.
And hopefully it'll be coming out this year. So it's just kind of cool. We have these two documentaries that one deals with Sly, one deals with Frank, and they're kind of coinciding. They're kind of parallel to each other and happening at the same time. It's really interesting.
Is there stuff in this documentary that even somebody like Mike Kunda, that he won't know? Are people going to learn something new?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what's so cool about it. You're still going to learn something new. Even the great Mike Kunda is going to learn something new. God, I love that guy.
Yeah.
It's so rich with new information because from start to finish for 30 minutes, Sylvester narrates the whole thing. There are no gaps. There's no gaps. Okay. It's just Sly, 30 minutes, no gaps. I remember I sent him a bunch of notes, right? Or not a bunch, maybe like 10 notes, so he could have something to look over the night before. As I'm sitting there, I've got my headphones on. The crew is doing their thing. Sly's sitting there. We did the narration in his man cave. He's got it up on the screen. Frank is there. And I've got my notes in my lap. And what I'm doing is I have the headphones on to make sure he's saying what he needs to say. There's no audio issues. I'm kind of watching the screen, but not really. I'm more focused on Sly. And I'm going down my notes, and he's hitting every note. And I'm like, did he really look at my notes, or is he just that good? And to this day, I don't know. I don't know if Sly prepared with my notes, or if he just naturally, there was kismet there, and he just went through everything. I remember this really fun moment where I heard like a noise, and I looked at Sly, and he's kind of rubbing his hands together as he's talking.
Yeah.
I go, oh, pause. I didn't say cut. You don't want to cut. I said pause. Hey, Sly, you're moving your hands. He's like, huh? Oh, yeah, right. And it was just kind of cool. It's this little moment where I'm like telling the Italian stallion, don't rub your hands while you're while we're getting your narration, buddy. And it's just like these cool little nuggets. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling that because it's kind of adorable. It's like, he's like, oh yeah, right. Okay, let's go again. And then he just did it one take. It was a one take deal, and it's full of information. And I remember gleaming. Not only was he hitting every note, the information that he was saying, it was like, what? I didn't know that. You guys are just totally in for a treat. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, you don't have to sell it to me any more than you are. That's I can't wait. As you were talking, I just realized you said you did the editing before his narration. So how did you know what to edit together, like the visuals, so to speak, and what have you, that he would want to narrate to? How much of that collaboration was you wanting some things, and how did you have access to what you had access to?
Naturally, with King of the Underdogs, John Avildsen gave me his entire vault I have access to. So I have all of that footage, hours and hours and hours of the footage. Well, when I met Frank Stallone, how we immediately bonded was I knew he was going to be at that dinner that I mentioned. So I said, John, can I show Frank this footage of Frank and Sly sparring on the set of Rocky? He goes, absolutely. I showed it to Frank on my phone that night, and he just melted. He had never seen it. This is 40 years later. He almost wept. So he told his brother. So Sly's like, hey, can I have some of that footage? You think John will let me see it? So I said, of course. So I put together 2 hours worth of this footage with Rocky music underneath it. So it's just no audio, it's just music.
Right.
And gave it to him as a gift from myself and John Avildsen. Cut to him seeing King of the Underdogs, and he sees all this footage, which he was already well aware of.
Right.
And that's when he said, do the edit, da-da-da-da. So I just said, okay, I know the story. I know this footage. I've already worked with this footage. I've edited it before with Underdogs. Eventually, Stallone Frank, that is. I know how to put this together. So I put it together in a way that not only was sort of chronological, also I made it feel like a movie. So when you watch this documentary, the way I edit the fight scenes and things like that feels like the fight. Now, that's to John and Carl and Sly's credit when they were rehearsing. I'm not taking credit for that at all, but you asked about the edit. Right. So what I've edited is I've made it feel like you're watching the Rocky movie, and Greg Sims' beautiful orchestral score underneath. You know, there's a lot of really beautiful moments. Another cool thing I did is I did some side-by-side comparisons. I can't wait for you to see those.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have Avildsen's footage playing on the left side of the screen, and you have the actual Rocky movie on the right side of the screen, and you see how close they were. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Okay. Man. So I think with this film, we don't want to say obviously too much of what we're going to see, other than we're going to see stuff that's new. We're going to see stuff that no one's ever seen before. Even guys like Kunda.
Right. Absolutely. And if I've said too much, I do apologize.
You haven't said no. You haven't said no.
You're really excited about it.
No, you haven't said it at all. No, not at all. That's what I mean. You've done a very good job of explaining it without revealing what's on the screen. Just what we can expect. What we can expect is to see new things, to be moved, to laugh, to cry, which sounds like a Rocky experience to me.
Absolutely. And it packs a wallop with only 30 minutes.
That's crazy.
It's a knockout punch. Hey, it's like an extension of the Rocky series, the Rocky franchise.
Yeah, it's amazing. What's the chance of a Rocky 7?
Well, I know things. I can't say anything.
Right.
So I'm going to plead the fifth.
Okay. We'll talk offline.
We'll talk offline.
We all know that Sly, he's just never done. He's just never done creating. He loves the Rocky character. I mean, just when we think he's done, so to speak. And he said himself, like, he has an idea. He's already mentioned that he has this idea. This is public knowledge, that he has an idea of maybe taking under his wing or tutelage immigrant of some sort. It could be a border issue. He's not afraid, of course, being political in his films in his own right. Let me run something by you, and you can still say plead the fifth, but I think you might find my thoughts interesting. I don't think he's happy with the Creed films, or maybe I don't think he's as happy with the Creed films as he is with the Rocky films. I know fans love the Creed films, and a lot of people like the Creed films because they're well-filmed films. They're well-done films, and at the end of the day, it's not bad filmmaking. And listeners of my show already know that I'm kind of humming and hawing how we're going to cover the Creed films, because the Rocky character is in those films. I think there might be a part of Sly, maybe, I could be wrong, that would rather end the character on his terms in his film franchise than in the Creed films.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, I'm just speculating. Again, I'm speaking as a fanboy, somebody who's been following Stallone's career for 40 years, I guess 36 years, since I was 8 years old when I first saw Rocky. And this is just me speaking as a fanboy, speculating. And also maybe is a little bit thinking of a creator's point of view, right? Mm-hmm. He created the character. He capped it off, I think, in a great idea, a great way with Rocky Balboa, and I get that. In a weird way, he kind of allowed the can of worms to be opened by giving us the Rocky character again in the Creed films. The best part of the Creed films is when Rocky's on screen. And everyone else does a great job. The Rocky character and his magic, I don't think it's over. And I think he would, again, I think Sly, if I was to guess, and I could be totally wrong, maybe he's totally happy with the way it capped off in Creed 2. I wouldn't be surprised if he wouldn't mind kind of doing a Rocky 7 to say, okay, now I've closed the franchise. Thanks a lot, Creed, for the detour. But we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, you'll find out.
I hate you. All right.
That's a good analysis, though.
Thank you. I don't think they had to retcon Apollo stepping out on his wife to have Adonis we know that Apollo had children. Why did it have to be an illegitimate child that wanted to have his own legacy under his father's shadow? Why couldn't it have been the son that we saw running around in Rocky Part 2?
Yeah, I found that kind of odd because are you making a statement? Are you making it really so similar to Muhammad Ali? What is this all about? I mean, guys, you've already killed Apollo. Like, why do we have to beat him up even more? What I think really what it was, it created more fuel for Adonis. You got to look at it as in an artistic, creative storytelling way. Instead of making him this really wealthy kid of Apollo, he's I guess you'd say the illegitimate, is that the correct term? Son.
Yeah, illegitimate.
It's fuel for his fire. And it also makes him closer to Rocky as opposed to maybe like a spoiled rich kid, etc. So it was totally intended to make his character and his fuel and his anger and everything make more sense. And obviously beautiful, those lines he says in the ring at the end,
I know,
about his dad. So that's why. But see what you're saying, because it's what I said earlier. Did they really have to crap on Apollo even more? Because we all love Apollo, and now he's an adulterer.
And this is not a slight on Ryan Coogler. I understand that that's the anger, but he was raised by Apollo's, widow, at a very young age. And so his anger being a foster kid, though, formative years, granted, but he was like 8, 9, or 10 when he got adopted. I forget what his exact age, between 10 and 12 when he got adopted by Marianne. But he was raised in a house and a privilege more than way more than your average person. He still could have had the anger of a father he never knew. He could have still had the anger of my father died in the ring when Marianne was pregnant with me, or she could have been pregnant during that fight. That's a very easy write-in, that she was pregnant during that fight.
Right.
So the son was born with no father, all the same, and Marianne was angry at her dead husband for making those decisions. You could still had a lot of anger in the home and resentment of the boxing career. But him, still, the DNA in him wanting to be a boxer, doing this under his mother's nose, I think it still would have even actually told a better story, and it would not have wrecked the Apollo legacy. Because every time I watch Rocky IV now, I think, oh yeah, he just banged a girl before he did the Living in America sequence.
One of the showgirls.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I see what you're saying, and it's sad because it taints him once again by not knowing when to quit, and he's so arrogant and cocky, he ends up dying. So it just comes down to what he needed something for modern audiences, and it's also a statement for foster children, for the downtrodden. I know he was still raised wealthy, but these angry kids out there, they may have done it for them, and that's wonderful. With their intentions and everything is wonderful, but with what you're saying is they still put a stain on this character we love. And that's the only problem. Like, that's the problem I have with it. But I also see what they're trying to do to inspire modern audiences.
I guess. I guess that's my right as a fan to be.
Absolutely. And you're totally right. Like, there's so many ways that could have been done, including what you just said. But I'm not defending the franchise.
I know.
It's just I'm trying to make sense of it myself, because I remember sitting in the theater going, man, really? Leave Apollo alone, Now he's a cheater.
Yeah, I know. And you could argue, yes, let's just be honest, sports figures, celebrities have stepped out on their spouses. Let's be honest. It's not an implausible story. I guess it's just, we all love Apollo. But he had a moment of weakness, sure, and I understand that, but I don't know.
Well, it's funny because you got to think about it. Our hero, Rocky, was also a leg breaker, but he had his redemption. So
fair, yeah.
Because he is only human. I mean, he was working for a loan shark, but he was redeemed. It almost feels like Apollo was at the height of everything. It probably already was redeemed, became a world champion, and then got overly cocky, was killed for it. And then now he's a cheater. It's just kind of in reverse. So I don't know. It's just storytelling, though. But yeah, I feel you.
What's your thoughts on Samaritan?
I mean, I'm excited about it. The posts that Sly has made and the look and everything. Pretty interesting. I mean, I really don't know too much about it other than what you've seen and everyone else has seen. Hey, I think Sly looks good in a beard.
He rocks a beard, and I don't know why he doesn't wear it more in films. And let's be honest, a beard can hide a lot of aging.
Yeah, he does. He looks younger, and he just looks awesome. Him and Arnold, man, keep the beards, guys. They've reinvented themselves. But you asked me about Samaritan, and I'm talking about Sly and Arnold's beards.
No, that's part of it. Is his look?
You know, I think he looks good, man. He does just keep reinventing himself. Yeah, he looks good. He looks fit. He looks good with the gray hair and the beard. I think he should keep it.
Yeah, I was watching those Instagram videos that he's doing, and it's great that he's interacting with his fans and answering questions on his Instagram videos. Yeah, he's looking slender. Like, I've noticed he's looking, his build is much slender, his face is thinner, and it's suiting him. It looks good.
Oh, maybe Samaritan will be a huge hit. Maybe it's the start of something new. He's the king of just what's next. He's starting something next. I mean, 3 franchises already? Like, that's crazy awesome.
Don't forget about Escape Plan.
Oh, well, you have a good point there. You have a good point. Did you see all the Escape Plans? I think there's 3 of them.
Sly, if you're listening, I haven't yet. I've seen part 1, which was quite enjoyable with Arnold, but the other 2, I've heard some bad things about it. But
yeah, oh, they are what they are. But you're right. Yeah, 4 franchises. That's crazy.
It's very impressive. Is there anything last thing you want to say about the documentary 40 Years of Rocky? When, again, the release date and what it's going to be available on, and how people from all around the world can watch this?
It's coming out June 9th digitally. Basically, there are 3 releases of this film. MGM will be putting it on Epix. We don't have a date for that yet. It's also on some of the airlines, but as we all know, airlines aren't really happening right now. So this June 9th release is critical, because this is the release where you can own this movie. Okay, so June 9th, digital platforms around the world, buy this movie, please, because this is your chance to own it, and it's your only chance to own it. So this is very, very critical. Yes, you could wait for Epix and all that stuff. That's great. I mean, we're so thrilled that MGM did a deal with us. But June 9th, that's your chance to own this one-of-a-kind documentary. And I mean, truly, truly unique documentary.
And by owning it digitally, what are those platforms that people can own it? Like, where can they purchase it? On what streaming sites? Like Amazon, I presume, or?
Yeah, it'll be like on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, stuff like that. Your standard platforms. June 9th, it's out there. It's available. You can find it on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play. I mean, it's out there. It's on all these digital platforms. Yeah, check it out. Let us know what you think. It's out there.
Oh, man, this has been an absolute pleasure. Derek, thank you so much for sharing some insight, stories of Sly, your opinions. I appreciate you sharing what you're allowed to share. Man, you're one of a kind, man. Most important question, what's next after the Frank documentary? What's next?
Well, first of all, thank you, and you were one of a kind as well. I can't announce it yet. I will say this. It is another documentary. I've kind of been pigeonholed as a documentarian when I'm really not. I'm a filmmaker, but I got offered a documentary I can't pass up. I'm so in love with it. It has nothing to do with Rocky the Karate Kid, Stallone, or Avildsen. I'm sorry to say. But
sweet. Steven Seagal. Awesome. Go on.
That's funny. But it is a documentary. And then after that, the goal is to just bounce back and forth between documentaries and feature films again. Hopefully that works out. Hope that all of you Rocky guys still follow my career, even when I exit the ring, so to speak.
You have that in me, and I know a lot of people will. You're well loved amongst the film community, Rocky community, and just like Sly in a way, he built his name with Rocky, but people followed him throughout his career because of that. So I think the same will happen for you. Oh,
I appreciate that, man. You're such a good friend, and I can't wait to meet you in person and have a couple beers with you. So let's do it one day.
I agreed. Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much, and have a good day and stay out of trouble there and out of those storms. And maybe the next time we record, we'll have some Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. Isn't it nuts? East Texas, man. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Be safe, and say hi to the family for me.
Will do.